Negative attention is also attention. Like that also gives you eyeballs on your brand. But I really think that's an overestimation again of what branding can do, because it will not, for a brand as well known as Jaguar, like having more people see it will not necessarily mean that more people will buy a car, that car in particular.
Yeah. And I think the definition of branding, right? It's like, it's not.
We are kind of live now. This is what I always wanted to say. We are live.
And we are officially live.
We are officially live, exactly. I mean, this is just an experiment. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about branding today. Perhaps one of the most underestimated, overestimated, and misunderstood thing in the design world. And we've seen that happen recently in the whole liquid glass discussion. Is it something you see too, like branding being misunderstood?
Yes, I think branding has become, more important these days. And because of its importance, I think people deploy it well and oftentimes not so well, just because they don't truly understand what branding is.
Feels like in today's AI age that branding is the one thing for you to stand out above the general AI slop, I would say. And to make full use of it, well, we at least have to understand what it is.
Yeah, I mean, because AI facilitates like the creation of all these new products. So someone with low technical skill can create anything they want, but creating a product requires creating a company, and along with that is having a strong brand. So if you don't have that I think design at the end of the day is like the big differentiator. So if you don't have properly executed brand, it doesn't separate you from the line of other products that are your competitors.
Yeah, true. So that's the power of branding. But at the same time, I also think people can overestimate branding. Like we've seen with the earlier this year or end of last year. I'm not really sure, but with the whole Jaguar rebranding. Remember the colorful videos and
I do.
The logo, and it's really been a divider within the design community and outside of the design community, with some people saying like, well, this is great, this is perfect, they're looking at a younger audience, it's much better than it used to be. And then some people were like, look at one of those letters, the A or the U, like it's not aligned properly, so some people were like, this is way too much, and some people were like, yes, this is perfect, which makes me think, like, on the overestimation part of it, like, do you think a new logo and different colors will sell more or less or equal expensive luxury cars?
Yeah, that one's a tough one, because I don't know if in Jaguar in general is like an expensive car. Like, I don't think it's accessible to everyone. So I don't know who they were targeting, but like, I think they were targeting the younger generation, but I don't know if they can afford their car. So that was a mismatch there, I think, from my perspective. But I think it could have gone well if they executed the product better, regardless of what side you are on like their campaign, whether it's done well or not. If you don't have a great product, I don't think it's going to land. That's like table stakes. I think you should, like, we're in a space where products have a barrier to entry when it comes to like quality. So if the product isn't solid, doesn't matter what your branding has to push you above and beyond. So I think, yes, the logo had these weird characters that were uneven. It got everyone excited. So like the purpose of that marketing push was to get everyone to kind of look towards when the new release of that electric car was coming. But when they saw it, I don't know about you, but I wasn't too impressed.
No, me neither. Well, that's taste, I guess, and that's fine. There's no good or bad there, I guess. But what you're saying, I think, if I can say, my version of what you're saying is that it doesn't really matter for something as expensive as a luxury car, and that it's a little bit overestimated. Like, people think too much of a redesign, of branding redesign.
Yeah, I've heard this, like, I think we've all heard this, like, things that are expensive, they don't promote. Like, do we promote in magazines anymore? There's no commercials for like Ferraris. Like, if you want a Ferrari, you buy a Ferrari. I think Jaguar is in that same bucket. If you want to buy, like, there's some nostalgia in the Ferrari, because we used to, like, when we were kids, we used to have like the Jaguar cars, and they were like very nice looking cars. So like, you don't really have to sell a Jaguar. It's just like, do you want one? You'll get one.
No, Maybe it's a bit of a sidetrack here. Do you think participation of these brands in like motorsports is their, their way of being in a commercial, quote unquote, with them winning races and trophies and championships, and then that's like, whoa, that's a Ferrari.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I probably don't have as much visibility on Jaguar and what they do in terms of like racing. So they put the brand probably extends beyond what I see.
Yeah.
I just see like a couple of vehicles like around the city. But that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Well, for Jaguar, all I know about Jaguar is, Jeremy Clarkson from Top Gear / Grand Tour being a huge fan of it, which is also branding, I guess. Like if your brand is associated with a certain person or a type of person, that can make people go like, oh, I want to be a car like that as well. And that's something you've seen with the Jaguar. They were really aiming for young people. I think the currently they think like Jaguar, that's from a rich older person, and they wanted to perhaps go away from it. One thing I also found interesting was like when there's, let's say a scandal happens. I don't want to say the rebranding of Jaguar was a scandal per se, but there was discussion and the negative response. In addition to a positive response, the negative response, people thought that was like a stroke of brilliance from the branding agency, because like negative attention is also attention. Like that also gives you eyeballs on your brand. But I really think that's an overestimation again of what branding can do, because it will not, for a brand as well known as Jaguar, like having more people see it will not necessarily mean that more people will buy a car. That car in particular.
Yeah. And I think the definition of branding, right? It's like, it's not necessary, like there's vehicles to like communicate, but also like branding is what people think about your company, not the reverse, not what you put out there. So it's like when you say Jaguar, what do you imagine? And I guess what they were trying to do was change what like the history of the company, which is the tough thing. That's a tough thing to do. So I guess that's why they go so bold for that separation. But like to your point, like they they went back and they washed that one out.
Yeah. True. I mean, that's interesting. Maybe something for us to talk about now. Like you mentioned, the definition of branding. It's how people see you, what people think of you. It's also the association. Do you work with certain people or other brands? I've seen podcasts getting a sponsorship where I feel like, hey, they're sponsoring, but it's not meant to sell something. Like there's no affiliate link in the episode description. And then I asked the podcast owner, like, hey, why are they sponsoring you? Like, it doesn't make sense for them to sponsor you. In a very friendly way, of course, because I imagine this could be misunderstood, like a question like that. But they said like, well, they are sponsoring me for association. They just want to see that that person was quite a big show, well known, well respected within its field, and for the brand to be associated and mentioned by that person was just a massive increase in their trustworthiness and their perceived value and quality. Because that one person talks about it. I think that's a very powerful thing for branding, and that's something I've seen in my personal branding as well. Like, oh, you've worked with that person. Well, that person is very strict and he has high quality work. Because of it, I'm more likely to hire you as well, just because you've worked with that other person before. Yeah. So I think branding or personal branding, again, I'm mostly talking about overestimation now, like underestimated how powerful it can be for your career as a designer.
Yeah, I was going to challenge you there for a second, but that totally makes sense. Like, especially if you're a freelancer and you've worked, and here are your case study, or here are your case studies. I've worked with this person, and kind of lends to like your credibility. But I always found it hard, like without attribution, I find it hard to put a dollar value on that type of marketing. So like in your first example, sponsoring the podcast with no affiliate link, like how do you measure the success or failure of that partnership, that based on like the person's follower count, how many views a video gets. So it's hard for me to kind of make that tangible. It's almost very similar to, at least in Montreal, if you go to downtown in any city, it is expensive. So you see like a bunch of clothing or expensive jewelry kind of companies like on the main street. But if you actually dig into the numbers and look at the rent, they probably lose money. They probably lose money having their establishment there, but the play is visibility, regardless of the brand like Gucci or whatever the brand is that has their store downtown on like the main street. They're losing money, but at least you can see them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the main goal of that podcast example I gave. And maybe they should add an affiliate link, just to track more clicks and that kind of stuff. I think the deal mostly was based on the average number of views a video gets. If that's X amount of thousands of views each time, 2 or 3 times a week for whatever number of episodes the deal runs, like that's more people getting to know you, that you exist. Maybe that's very like early on in the customer journey of perhaps using that product at some time. Yeah. But I agree with the main street thing you're saying. I'm always a bit hesitant to do something similar for my career, but more in a digital way. I'm not sure what the ROI is. Like, you're the ROI designer, so maybe you have a good insight there. Like having let's say you're a freelancer and you want more leads. Like, would you get a salesperson to like an equivalent of the being in Main Street? Like, do you want to have someone with lots of connections that you have to pay money for leads? Like, is that worth it? Yes or no? Like, what do you think?
That's a tough one. Maybe maybe that makes sense when you're starting, right? So you don't have any. Generally, if you're doing your work, working with clients, the strength of word of mouth is very powerful. So at the end of like a contract, you usually follow up with, hey, if anyone else in your network needs my services, please send them my way. And that usually works pretty well. But I guess when you're starting or you don't have that many contacts, a salesperson might make sense. I'm not sure how much they would charge. Like that would probably eat into your like, I don't know what the margin on that is.
Perhaps it's commission based, or it's a percentage on top of your hourly rate. In that case, it wouldn't cost you any money if it's on top of your payout instead of them needing a like fixed price. But I'm not familiar enough with it. But I don't know why. But your example of being on Main Street made me think of sales and that kind of stuff for a individual career. How about liquid glass? We talked about it last time, and you mentioned that you wouldn't have mentioned it at all during your keynote. Like if you were Apple, if you were in charge of the keynote, you would not mention it at all. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I feel like there's a bit of branding choice there as well, deciding not or to show it.
Yeah, it's almost similar to, I think I saw this clip. It came up recently, and it made me think about our session about the liquid glass episode. But essentially, there's a marketing agency that was working with Heinz ketchup. And then they're working on their promotional ad campaigns, like old school billboards. And what they pitched was like 3 photos, basically a photo of fries, a photo of like a hamburger, and then another piece of food that needs ketchup. And then they overlaid on top of it, pass me the Heinz. And then the owners of the company is like, Heinz ketchup, right? It's like, no, you don't need to mention ketchup. What else would it be? It's Heinz, it's ketchup.
Yeah.
Not featured in the ad itself was the actual product. It was just the word Heinz, which was an interesting play because it's banking on the credibility of the brand that you're not associated with the product. You are the product. It's like all the other products that are not the main. It's the brand name, not the actual product itself. So Heinz is ketchup. You think of that immediately. There's some other ones out there too where it's not the actual product name itself. It's just like the brand name has like the branding so well that it's overtaking the actual name.
Yeah. I wasn't aware of this, but now that you mention Heinz, I think it's true. Like for me, it's the default to go to that bottle, like the red bottle upside down with the white label on it. Like I don't even know if there's another brand. Like I would always go for Heinz, even though I've never been on their website. I've never seen a commercial. It's just they are ketchup, which is, I think, a wonderful example of like really top 0.1% of the pyramid in terms of branding power. Like if you are the number one or the only one, I think you're in a very strong and maybe even unique position.
Exactly. So if you're like Swiffer, for example, like
Yeah.
when we went from mop to this thing that's not a mop, but like that
Yeah.
cleans the floor with the bristles, like you think of Swiffer. It's the
Yeah.
default, which is so strong.
Isn't that the same with a jacuzzi? Like
Yep. Yep. That's the brand name.
it's a brand name, but every bubble bath you have on the porch somewhere, people are like, hey, that's a jacuzzi. Well, even though it might be a Whirlpool or some other brand.
Yeah, exactly. And like to your ketchup example, there's an emotional feeling. Like the other ketchups are probably still as good, but like whenever like I look at it, like, ooh, I don't know, there's like an emotional like disgust feeling, even though it's at the end of the day, it's the same recipe, probably.
Yeah. Well, yeah, perhaps. Well, that's the power of branding for sure. Just like a label can do something, and also if you look at it from a design perspective, like if you, for example, Coca-Cola, if you remove everything but you only have the font, like the really like the loopy font, people still, or the M from McDonald's, like people still know what it is, just because they've been exposed to it for so long.
Exactly. Like when you think of McDonald's, do you think the best burger? When you think of like all the burgers you've had in the world, you think McDonald's?
I don't think of the best burger. I think of the Happy Meal as a child. And
oh, interesting.
You know, it's more memories and family time, because I enjoy McDonald's, but they're not like, if you would do a blind test, like they will not come out on top, but they do have the emotional part. Like I don't feel like if you have like a commercial for one of these brands, they're not likely to have a commercial where the big payoff is like, we now have a smaller bottle that's like 20% more efficient and it saves a bit of money and it's good for the environment. It's always a close up of the burger, or like the can that opens like with the sound. You know, it's always the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
While a supermarket is about their discounts, like next week, soda cans, 2 for the price of 1, you know? It's a different type of commercial, different type of branding.
Exactly. Get the Coke on discount. Like, oh.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. And nothing wrong with either one of those, but it's interesting to see that there are different types of, like, you can feel emotionally connected to a brand, but it can also be, you know, very, I'm not sure what the right word is, but let's say like logistically attached to a brand. Like I go there for all my sales shopping, like for all the discounts, I always go to that shop. But if I want to have a family moment, I go to the other shop. And you have to really lean into that. Like I think it would be very strange if Coca-Cola would make or let's say go back to Jaguar, if they say like, we dropped our prices by 2%. Now it's only $158,000 for a car. You know, that's not the type of commercial they will make. It will probably have an actual Jaguar in, you know, walking across the street or whatever, like, you know, just to show speed and whatever.
Yeah, of course. It's like what's that lemonade example? If there's 2 lemonade stands, one says cold sugar water, versus another one that has a board that says freshly squeezed lemons. Which one are you going to go to? Not the cold sugar lemony water.
No, that's true. Refreshing on a warm summer day in Canada. Like that's the thing you want. Refreshing.
Yes, exactly.
Circling back to Apple, I think Apple is the victim of their own branding with liquid glass, because you know, and regardless of whether or not this is true, you know, some people are like super fans of Apple. Some people are quite the opposite. But I think it's safe to say that Apple is known, for, at least in their image and in their branding, as a company that innovates and comes with like high quality products, and they do things differently and blah, blah, blah. And that's not always true. And they've had their product failures. But I think because of the brand, that type of branding that sticks to Apple, people expected you know, maybe too much from liquid glass. And you know, every September when they announce new iPhones and new watches and all these things, people are always like, well, it's just a refresh. When are they going to innovate again? But then at the same time, like, you know, we know what a mobile phone is. Like, you know, it's slightly quicker, battery is slightly better, camera is a bit better. You know, we're not making big leaps anymore with phones, but still people are disappointed. And then they will still buy it. So then
That's a good point.
that's a double-edged sword of branding for Apple. I think the innovation, like the champion they are or they were perhaps in the 90s or early 2000s, like that's following them around, and I'm not sure people really get that. So I think that's on the emotional level also. Like they expect Apple to do something more than just show the beta like they did earlier in June.
That's fair. But I also think they've built up enough brand equity to fail. Like
Mhm.
let's be realistic. If they do another failed launch, is anyone going to switch to Android? Let's be real.
I don't think so.
Like they've done a really good job of creating their ecosystem where everything kind of connects to each other. Like we have the computer connects to the phone, and I played with my mother's Android phone. I'd rather not. So I think they have, to your point, the opportunity to experiment and fail a couple times. They have a pretty loyal community that's obviously very vocal, which is like a product designer's dream, right? Imagine having a million voices tell you what they didn't like and what you did wrong. What are the different edge cases that you've missed? Liquid glass doesn't work on this screen or that screen. It's a beta, right? So I imagine they're gonna fix it by the time it launches.
Yeah. Okay, can I say something about that? It's a bit of a concern that I'm having. We're recording this towards the end of June, and Apple has currently they are giving or launching. I think it's the better word. They are launching public beta versions of like all the OSs they're working on for your phone and for the Mac. And the new one came out recently, and it has a ton of improvements compared to the version that they've shown during WWDC. The WWDC version is the one that got all the attention, all the hate. The screenshots of readability issues and all these things. It's much better based on feedback, because the public beta is there for you to try, not only to be a smart kid on social media, but they do it to gather feedback. And I was like, well, just wait. Just let them improve the beta. It's a beta. It's not the final release. And I did a bit of research. They do about 6 to 8 public betas before they launch in September, usually. So I'm a bit concerned, like, is that something we as designers are not aware of? Like, because it feels to me fairly standard in software releases and software development that you have like an iterative approach. You have a test version, you gather feedback, you improve, and that's a circle that keeps going for a while. If designers were more aware of the software development cycle, maybe they would have been less vocal or less angry on social media, because they knew it would be okay in the end. Or do you think I'm too harsh now towards our fellow designers?
Yeah, I think that's true. Like, they're a software company or they're a product company. They're releasing iterations. It's going to get better. And like we all know, we've all been there well, I've never been there at that scale where we're launching the big reveals. Like, you can imagine that they had that date booked for when they were going to do that conference, and they wanted to squeeze as many cool features on the deadline as fast as possible. And there's probably things that were cut, like QA passes here. There's like, oh, there's this cool thing, and there's pushing from the executives. So we have to launch with it has to look this, so things get missed. Because it's a release and it's not going to be perfect. The designers at Apple probably were under pressure. They did a great job. Again, I think we just picture Apple as this like image of perfection when they go through the same processes that we're all very familiar with. They launched their beta and they called it that. And to your point, the newest releases are much better.
Yeah, I feel like so I feel like it's going to be okay. And I think branding wise, very interesting is there's a lot of cheer about the reversal of the Finder icon changes that they were going to do. Like you have that blue and white face, like the Apple Finder icon. It has the blue face on the left and the white face on the right. And then in the first announcement, it was flipped. So white face on the left, blue on the right. I can. Was that sarcasm? Because it was only very obvious. But that's something people are associated with. They feel connected to, like, it's the Macintosh icon, the logo. It's the thing. And then they changed it. I don't know the reason why they changed it, but now they changed it back. And I feel like that's a small but important move. And if I can please cue your "oh no" in as sarcastic voice as you can, but they changed the Mickey Mouse finger icon. Like when you hover something that's clickable, they changed it to a generic finger. And that's something I'm very annoyed by. I'm very attached to the Mickey Mouse finger. I can't help it. It feels like it's like default Apple. It's when you hover something, you see like the little white glove with the black lines on top of the hand. That's very Apple. Like that's just what they have, and they're removing it. I'm trying not to cry here.
Say again. Oh no.
Oh no. Yeah. But that's I think your reaction is very interesting. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's not like people will stop buying Apple products, but I'm not alone. There are quite a few people very disappointed by it. And it's, those were little touches that make you stand out compared to whatever other operating system you can use, Windows and Linux and Chrome and whatever. I think it's important for both of those to stay.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. I mean, I had to look at my dock just now to realize that the white was on the right-hand side and the blue was on the left-hand side, and fine. But I think it's all part of, like, with branding, it's like the journey, right? So it has to be, consistency is like the name of the game. So
yeah,
there's like through every step, there's these like little magical moments. The glove being one of them. So it all kind of adds up to your experience with Apple as the brand.
Yeah. Well, what I think is very important also is it doesn't matter. That's my sad, realistic approach. I think we also should highlight now is it's also outside of the design bubble. Like in politics, in world news, something crazy happens. The whole world is like, oh no. Just like you were like, oh no. And then next week we forget and we continue with our lives. We're noticing this with liquid glass already. I'm currently seeing more examples, more posts on social media of people creating a tutorial how to recreate liquid glass. Or here's my portfolio in liquid glass. So we're already moving away from it's bad to here's how I made it myself.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's cool.
Yeah.
Regardless of the accessibility, I think it's a cool new effect.
It's very cool. Yeah, for sure. But my point being is whenever something silly happens, people are angry for a few days and then they accept and move on. Another example here is like the hamburger menu, like the 3 lines. People were like, well, it's not good for accessibility and it's a bad design pattern because you don't know the menu items hidden behind that icon. You should show them all the time just so people can scan it better. The iPhone 10 came out, no home button. So you had to swipe from outside your screen up just to open your phone. Like there's no indication of it except for that little bar. And now people are used to it to a level that it's second nature. Nobody's complaining anymore about the hamburger menu and the swipe gesture. And the same will happen to liquid glass. Like we will accept it and we will forget the accessibility issues because that's just how the news works. Like there will be a new quote unquote scandal that people will bite themselves into and they will forget it as well. So that's I also think the sad reality. Like if we were very strict and we kept pushing on being better, which is very exhausting, then we, as a design community, I think we would increase a few levels, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I think it mirrors the Jaguar. I think Jaguar is going to be fine. I think Apple's going to be fine. The other brands that tried and failed, it's just like a dip in their profit margin for a little bit, and then everything's back to normal.
Everything's back to normal. Yeah. I noticed it within myself. I noticed it within myself as well. At first I was like, I'm not going to update. And now I'm like, I'm probably going to update.
Yeah, or else you're going to be locked out of your favorite apps. So
I just have to admit it. Like this is a podcast with 2 authentic people. So I want to be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to be. Though, to be fair, I've been looking at that update on my phone and I've yet to hit update.
Well, it's a public beta. I wouldn't put a public beta on your main phone anyway.
Yeah, well, I have the beta unlocked. So I have like or the beta switch. So I get the beta updates instead of just like the official releases. So
All right.
I just have issues with, it does leak the updates at night. It often fails for some reason. Like you
Right.
auto update when I'm sleeping, but it just never does it. So, which is an odd one for me, but I
Right.
digress.
Yeah. Well, I have my old iPhone lying around. It has a special version of liquid glass on it called a broken glass, but it's still functioning. So I might get it. So I might put the iOS 26 on that phone just to see how it works. But let's go back to the main topic, branding. One thing I think important, like for designers to also talk about, is personal branding. So far, we've been talking about a few examples and what is branding, and big brands and what it all means. But for your career, I think personal branding is also super important, and I think it applies to people in your situation, in-house designers, as well as people in my situation, like freelancers. In similar ways, I guess, like you are associated with something, like you might have a specialty, but also how you speak online and how you present yourself all really tie into, I'm not going to hire this person, or I am going to hire this person.
I think personal branding is super important. I think it's like the first thing that you should kind of define for yourself. I've been doing a lot of like mentorship lately, and branding is like the first exercise we do. It's like,
Interesting.
there's a line that I have people kind of try to figure out. So like part of the process is kind of understanding who they are as a person, as a designer, what types of companies that they want to work for, and defining that like who you are and then how you show up. So it's something like, I help insert type of company, whether that's like a startup or a larger company. Essentially, it's like, I help this type of company improve this business metric through my design differentiator. Putting people through that exercise, first of all, brings clarity, and also it's used everywhere. So it's used as like your hero statement in your portfolio. When you send your CV or your resume, they go to your website first as the first like line they see. Instead of, see a lot of like students where they put, hello, I'm Jimmy, I'm this, like, I don't care. But what do you do? Like, what's your personal brand? And then that travels to your case studies. Does that line translate to the type of work you do? So like, if your line is, for example, I help early stage startups find product market fit through my exploratory analysis, which is my differentiator, I want to see that in your case studies. I also want you to speak about it during the interview process, whether that's like, regardless of who that is, like the hiring manager, HR, and then also how you show up on that first day. Like, this is who I am. When this type of work comes down the lane, I'm the best to tackle it. So that when future work comes down, I go, hey, Nick's really good at that. I've branded myself as this type of designer that tackles this type of work through my special set of skills.
Right. Maybe it's interesting to make this more tangible for people. Like, what's your main line? Like, if you would apply what you just said to yourself, like, what's your deal?
It's probably something along the lines of, I help early stage startups. I probably say, I help early stage startups increase retention and grow revenue through my analytical and data driven design approach, or some better version of that. But it's essentially,
of course. No, I kind of put you on the spot there, so I don't expect you to have the perfect line there. But it's good because lots of advice is very generic, like, find your specialty. Yeah, okay, but people don't really know what it is yet, and a few examples would help. So that's why I asked. But you also mentioned the ROI of design, like the ROI designer. Like, that's also something you talk about quite often. So shouldn't that be part of your main headline?
Yeah, I think it probably should. It's just, so I've been doing design for a while, and I've noticed that I've just been focusing on like how pixels look, but not necessarily like the impact that you have. I think it's just important to be aware of that when you're working at a company, like especially in-house, when you're like, you're kind of disconnected sometimes. So it's like, I do this work and it goes out the door, but what impact did I have? But I think measuring maybe just the individual yourself as a designer and also the design team, what your impact is,
Right.
which brings us back to that seat at the table conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting. What I would say for myself is that I'm also focused on startups, SaaS. I would say that I help non-designers go from A to Z on a full project.
Oh.
So it's everything from that first idea to branding and designing and developing. Like my favorite type of project is just someone who comes to me like, hey, I need a website. I don't have anything except for a few thoughts in my head, and this is my problem. Then I do everything for them. The logos, branding, colors, text, designing the actual website, and then building it in Webflow or WordPress or whatever. And to make it even more A to Z, it also includes like SEO thinking. Like it's the technical SEO is also on point. Like it's not just a random cloggy website. The performance is there too. Yeah. So then we have you have your version, you have my version. I think a few more examples would help too for our listeners. One I've seen, there are two which I think are valid, but probably a bit overused currently. But if one of those two is who you are, well, then that's fine. Like not a problem. But just to point out, I think I'm seeing them quite a bit. They are a designer with a focus on accessibility. It's mostly something I see in the EU because of new legislation. Like there are for government agencies and government websites, it's somewhere this year, I guess, or early last year. It's now mandatory to follow a certain level of accessibility of the main guidelines. Like you're required to follow it, otherwise you can get fines. So it's a bit business driven as well. Like people want to be seen as accessibility experts so they can get hired to fix websites before the deadline. Or it's from a more a principle standpoint, like accessibility is good because you're open to more people can make use of your services. So one of those two reasons for accessibility. And then the second one is being a design partner. That's something I see lots of agencies talk about. Like we're more than just making it pretty. We're also your design partner. We think along. We do more than just what you say. We want you to go further and blah, 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 that kind of thing. Yeah. So accessibility and design partner, those two, I think are also examples of how you can brand yourself as a designer.
Yeah, I think the accessibility one is super powerful just because, well, it's a specific niche, but it's a niche that's in high demand. Like to your point, with all the legislation and law updates in EU, they're looking for, by law, you have to do a certain thing. So if you're an expert in that field, then you're going to be in high demand.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I did a few projects for government agencies, like Dutch ministries, and it's very interesting. They are very the range in website quality, like it's very broad. Like some websites are really top notch and really accessible, and some websites are quite outdated, but they're working very hard on making it better. So that's a good thing. Like you should, I think, as a government, you should be accessible for all people within your country. Like everyone should be able to read about laws and how you can get some help if you need it. Well, let's not make it too politic heavy in this episode, but do you have any other examples of how to position yourself branding wise as a designer on top of the 4 that we have now?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's like back to the point about like what branding is, what your customers think about you when like you pop up to your mind. I think if you execute your work solidly, it's about how, like if you were to ask any of your past clients, when they think Nick, what do they think of? I imagine it'd be like high quality of execution of work. I think that's the most important part of branding, like doing excellent work.
Yeah.
Showing up on time, being consistent.
Yeah. Communication,
exactly. I think consistency is underrated. So like showing up for meetings, replying to emails quickly, those small little things are like big differentiator between you and like the pack.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to show that in a portfolio, by the way. Don't you think? If it's most of what you're saying is soft skills, being a kind communicator, replying to emails, being on time. Like I've never seen a portfolio where someone said like, hey, I finished this project, conversion rate is up by 2%, and I've been on time 99% of my meetings.
That's a weird one. It's a weird flex to push.
Yeah, but well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I joke a little bit, but I've been thinking about this recently. Like, let's say your main skill is, you can take a non-designer, non-technical person, and you can help them understand websites and the design process, and you really guide them to the finish line of a project, and they feel at ease and not confused like they were before the project. Like, that's very tough to show in a portfolio. Except, I guess, like, my answer to my own question would be you need a testimonial
I was
from
gonna
that
say,
person.
yeah.
But there must be a bigger way, unless you think like the testimonial is enough, because then I can let go of my question.
I think I was gonna say, because I was gonna bring up testimonials. I think testimonials is enough because it speaks. Well, number one, I think testimonials are underutilized in people's portfolios. Just
Mhm.
it's another layer of social proof that
Yeah.
yes, I did this case study, but here's what the stakeholders or the clients thought of the final delivery.
Yeah.
So it adds to that credibility. So
Mhm.
we executed on these KPIs, and the customer was super happy with the result,
Yeah.
which is probably the most important.
Yeah. Yeah. And then enter testimonial. And then, as a little bit of a side note again, but then for the testimonial, I would always link to the person's website or LinkedIn
Or like the
profile, just to make it even more real. Sometimes people want to check, like, if that testimonial is real, maybe ask that person, like, hey, did you work with Tyler? Like, is this what you said about him? Then they can say yes. Or even, like, one of my testimonials is a tweet by someone. So I'm linking to the actual tweet. So people can actually see it in context.
exactly. And also like on a micro level, like if you did a website project, link to the actual website.
Yeah, true. Well, you've been posting on LinkedIn for a while every day. I imagine there's some branding involved there as well. Like, you have the same payoff every time, or you talk about similar topics, I guess, within design. Is there any branding thinking going on, or any advice you would have for people wanting to build a personal brand on social media?
Yeah, I think it's just about picking your lane or your niche that's different. Like there's I was asked this question recently. It's like, how do I set up what I want to post about? It's like, well, I think there's an abundant amount of like Figma tutorials. This is how you do this drop shadow, this and that. But there's a
Yeah.
gap. There's like other opportunities to speak about things that are not oversaturated. Accessibility could be one. Mine just happens to be the ROI of design. So I generally post about like problems or features that you want to kind of tackle, and then the cost of not fixing it, or the revenue generated by fixing a specific thing or launching a specific feature,
Yes.
which is like I think undervalued or under talked about. So it's just about picking, what's the term, two layers of niche. So you have like design, and then we have product design, and then we have accessibility. So like
Right.
you're niching down to a specific level. That's just like you're talking about something unique that not a lot of people talk about, which
Mhm.
differentiates you in the market.
Yeah. Well, maybe one thing that came up based on what you just said is you're posting every day, right? Like once a day, 7 days a week. And if you're very niched down, like ROI of design, and you do this for 3 months, like, can you think of 9 topics to write about when you're really niched down? Or are you doing some sort of recycling? And how do you come up with your ideas?
Yeah, I think it's at the beginning it's very easy because you just look back at your experience, and basically you're essentially just teaching. Well, what I usually do is kind of I'm speaking to the Tyler of 10 years ago, and things that I wish I knew.
Right. Right.
Which there's a lot of things that I wish I knew. So there's a deep flaw there, but also people comment on your posts, so they have questions, they have comments,
Mhm.
and that's an opportunity to kind of for idea generation. It's just like have questions, people are leaving comments. There's your new post,
Yeah.
just answering their
Well, that's
questions.
true. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to have 2 weeks of content ready in advance. You just have to be in the comment section.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
like you
Oh.
have your mini audience, and they're hungry. If you're doing a decent job, they're hungry to learn more. So answer
Mhm.
their questions.
Yeah. All right. So for personal branding, just to summarize, you have to present yourself in a certain direction, and then a niche, design niche in particular, and write about it and basically become it, that type of designer everywhere you go, and be consistent about it in your case studies, in your posts everywhere. Then before you know it, you will be known as, that type of designer. If I need ROI, if I need accessibility, if I need A to Z, like design development projects, I need to go to, fill in the name, right?
Exactly.
I think that's probably the very simple summary of a more complex process.
And also, to answer your own question, is branding overrated or underrated?
I think in general it's underrated. It's more often underrated than it is overrated. Well, that's nice that we agree. Perhaps a bit boring for our listeners, like, oh, they agree again, but that's fine. Well, that's everything on my list in regards to branding. I think we had a good talk. Do you have any closing remarks on branding?
I think just to double down on personal branding. I think that's going to be as to not to harp on the AI thing, but as tools get better, that automate certain things, what's becoming more and more pertinent is the designer's mind. So I think it's important to flex your intellectual skills and then also brand yourself accordingly.
Right.
Which is going to be your main differentiator.
Yeah, I think so too. Do not be the obvious AI slop poster on social media. We can tell. Take it very seriously. Branding, it's super important. All right. Well, that's it, I guess. What's the topic of next time?
What is the topic of next time?
I think we're going to talk about how is it smart to, or is it worth it, I think is a better word, to study and get into UX and product design today, with all the AI developments coming up. Like, should you? Is it worth it? Will you even be able to get a job when you graduate in 3 or 4 years, or in 6 months when you do a shorter program? I know you have some thoughts there.
That's
you
a
as
tough one.
being a very pro AI and a user of AI prototyping tools. So I know you have something to say there.
I think the main question is, it depends on what UX design looks like during that time period. I think it's evolving fast. So tease that for the next episode. But I think it depends on what UX kind of evolves into, as it's evolved in the past.
I wanted to interrupt you, like, don't answer it yet, but you stopped at teaser and cliffhanger, so that's nice. All right. Well, I think that's a very important question to have an answer for. So I hope to see you all next time.
That was a great episode. So if you like this content and want to hear more, please like and subscribe.
Yeah, and if you want to see more, please go to designtablepodcast.com, Spotify, Apple Music, all the big players and more.